Welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Emmanuel. If this is your first time on my channel, let me say welcome, and I hope you find this video really helpful. And if this is not your first time, thanks for visiting my channel again. Thanks for liking my previous videos, and thanks for subscribing to my channel. So today I just want us to do a very quick revision, something succinct on the muscles of the forearm, of course the human forearm. So let's start with this image. Let's have a look, run through of the muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm. So we'll just try to identify all the muscles we can see on this image and try to decipher where they originate from and where they insert from or insert into. So let's start. So looking at these two parts of the arm, we could see the brachial, the biceps brachii, which we mentioned in one of our previous videos. So we can see this muscle, that's the brachialis muscle, which is deep to our biceps brachii. So biceps brachii and the brachialis muscles are muscles of the anterior compartment of the arm. And then looking at the forearm, we have the brachioradialis muscle, and we can see that the brachioradialis muscle seems, appears to be coming from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Okay, it's coming from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, from the common extensor origin. Actually, I think above the common extensor origin, we wouldn't see that here, but that's the brachioradialis. So above the common extensor origin is there. So it's actually from the lateral distal parts of the humerus above the lateral epicondyle. Okay, and you can see the brachioradialis muscle going down. And if you look at the insertion of the brachioradialis, it inserts into the distal parts of the radius, okay, into the radial stylus, the base of the radius stylus process. That's where the brachioradialis muscle. So it comes from above there and then, inserts into the base of the radial styloid process. We have the pronator teres muscle, which has two heads. We'll get to find out about that. So we have a pronator teres muscle, which helps in pronating the forearm. We have the flexor carpi radialis. Okay, we've got the flexor carpi radialis. We've got the palmaris longus muscle. Okay, we've got the flexor carpi ulnaris. So looking at the nomenclature of these muscles, palmaris longus suggests a muscle of the palm that is long. Well, that's what the name suggests. Palmaris longus, and we'll get to see that this palmaris longus, named as the name suggests, contributes to this palmar aponeurosis. So the tendon inserts into the palmar aponeurosis, and we'll get to find out that it helps in tensing the palmar aponeurosis. So the name suggests what it does. The pronator teres, as the name suggests, it contributes in pronation, which is turning the forearm in such a way that the palm of your hand faces down, faces the floor. That is pronation. If you turn your forearm in such a way that the palm of your hand faces the ceiling or the roof, that is supination. So pronator teres helps in pronating the forearm. Deep inside, we'll get to find another muscle, the pronator quadratus, also contributes in pronation of the forearm. Okay, we'll get to see that in more detail. The flexor carpi radialis, as the name suggests, it flexes the wrists at the radial side. So flexor carpi, flexor means it flexes, carpi means the wrists, the carpal area, the carpal bones, the wrist, and radialis means the radial side. So it comes from the common flexor origin, which is at the medial epicondyle of your humerus, and it goes down towards the radial side. Okay, and if we look at that, the flexor carpi radialis inserts into the base. It inserts into the base of the second and third metacarpals. Okay, into the base of the second and third. The first metacarpal is that of the thumb. The second and third metacarpals into their base. As we have the flexor carpi radialis, and as the name suggests, this muscle will contribute to flexing the wrist. The flexor carpi ulnaris, as the name suggests, if the flexor muscle flexes the wrist, so carpi, and it's on the ulnar side. So flexor carpi ulnaris muscle comes from the common flexor origin at the medial, so that's the common flexor tendon at the medial epicondyle of the humerus. It comes from there and it goes down to insert here. It has quite a broad insertion into the pisiform bone. So the pisiform bone is this roundish bone there, which is part of the carpal bones. So the pisiform bone, it inserts into the hook of hamate. So we've got the pisiform bone there, we've got the hamate bone, and that's the hook of the hamate, and it also inserts into the base of the fifth, into the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. Okay, so that's the flexor carpi ulnaris coming from the common flexor tendon. It comes from there and it inserts there, and it helps in flexing the wrist. So when you put tension on that muscle and also on the flexor carpi radialis together, assisted by some other flexor muscles, they flex your wrists. Okay, which is like the plantar flex, the palmar flex. Okay, you volar flex your wrist, not dorsiflex. So these are the muscles we can see, in a nutshell from this image. Okay, yeah. So let's move ahead. Yeah, so we can also see the flexor digitorum superficialis. We can see a part of the flexor digitorum superficialis. And we can also see we can't see the flexor digitorum profundus because that's deeper. That's a much deeper muscle. So we'll get to other levels of dissection. So let's look at this image. This is extracted. So this image is extracted from Frank Netter's Atlas of Human Anatomy. Same as this. This table is also an extract from the Atlas of Human Anatomy by Frank Netters. So let's just look in more detail. So the pronator teres muscle has two heads. It has a medial head that comes from the humerus, and it has two heads actually. It has a deep head and a superficial head. So the superficial head of the pronator teres comes from the medial epicondyle just above the common flexor origin, or the common flexor tendon. So that's where it is, superficial head. And then the deep head of the teres, or the pronator teres, comes from the coronoid process of the ulnar bone. That's the ulnar bone, and that's the radius. So the coronoid process. So the coronoid process is actually quite wide, because in the previous video we got to learn that the brachialis muscle inserts. So that's brachialis insertion, inserts into the coronoid process of the ulna and also into the ulnar tuberosity, the brachialis muscle. Okay, so pronator teres, deep head coming. So the red is origin, coming from the deep head is from the coronoid process of the ulnar bone. Superficial head from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Okay, and the pronator teres it comes this way and it moves this way. Okay, it moves towards the radial side and it inserts into the middle third. Okay, it inserts into the middle third of the lateral surface of the radius. That's where it inserts, and it contributes in pronation of the forearm. So the pronator teres, the innervation is the median nerve C667. It pronates the forearm and it assists in flexion of the elbow, not flexion of the hand, because the muscle doesn't traverse, the pronator teres doesn't traverse the wrist, so it cannot flex the hand, but it assists in flexing the elbow joint. Okay, because you see it traverses the elbow. The superficial head comes from above the elbow joint, so it traverses, so it contributes. It's not a primary or a major elbow flexor. The major elbow flexors are muscles at the biceps and brachialis. Okay, but it contributes to the flexion of the elbow. So let's look at the flexor carpi radialis. It comes from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. It comes from the common flexor tendon, and it inserts into the base of the second metacarpal, second and third. Okay, second mainly and third. It's also innervated by median nerve C6, C7. it flexes and it abducts the hand at the wrist. Okay, if it comes this way from here, goes all the way this way and inserts. So if you pull this muscle, if you give it tension, it's going to, flex and abduct. Let's look at the palmaris longus. So palmaris longus also comes from the common flexor origin at the medial epicondyle of the humerus. This muscle is found in most people, but not in everyone. So about 9 to 14% or 9 to 16% of people would not have a palmaris longus. So 84 to 91% of individuals would have a palmaris longus. And this muscle inserts into the distal half of the flexor retinaculum. So it inserts into the flexor retinaculum at the wrist, and it also inserts into the palmar aponeurosis. The palmaris longus muscle is innervated by the median nerve C7, C8. It contributes in flexing the hand because it traverses the hand, and it tenses the palmar aponeurosis. So that's the palmaris longus. It has a long tendon. Okay, it has a long tendon. That's why it's called the longus. It goes into the palm, attaches to the flexor retinaculum, okay, and also blends with the palmar aponeurosis. So it tenses the palmar aponeurosis, and it contributes in flexing the wrist or flexing the hand. The flexor carpi ulnaris has two heads. It has a humeral head from the common flexor tendon, and it has an ulnar head from the olecranon and the posterior border of the ulna. So the common flexor tendon there. Okay. If you look there, flexor carpi ulnaris. So it also comes there. Comes from this. So the flexor carpi ulnaris inserts into the pisiform bone, the hook of Hammett, and the base of the fifth metacarpal. So you can see the flexor carpi ulnaris comes this way on the ulnar side of the forearm and inserts. That's the pisiform. It inserts into it has a tripartite. Yeah, tripartite insertion. It has, into the pisiform bone, into the hook of Hammett, and into the base of the fifth metacarpal, and it contributes in flexing the wrists and adducts the hand at the wrist. The flexor digitorum superficialis has a humeral ulnar head and has a radial head. So the flexor digitorum superficialis, the humeral ulnar head is from the coronite process of the ulnar bone. Okay, from the coronite process of the ulnar bone. So that's like the ulnar condyle. Somewhere there, the coronite process of the ulnar bone. And we've got the radial head. So flexor digitorum superficialis radial head. Okay. From the upper third, you can see from the upper third or from the upper half of the anterior surface, the anterior anterior border or anterior margin, of the radius. And the flexor digitorum superficialis inserts into the base of the middle phalanges of the second, third, fourth, and fifth digits, or you can say the first, second, third, fourth fingers. But it's usually good to use digits so you don't get confused in your counting. So the thumb is the first digit, but the thumb is not counted as a finger, but it's the first digit. The index finger is the first finger or the second digit. So you can say it inserts into the base of, or the basis of, the middle phalanges of the second, third, fourth, and fifth digits, flexor digitorum superficialis, and it contributes in flexing the digits and also the wrists. So it flexes the middle and proximal phalanges of the middle four digits, also flexes the hand at the wrist. The flexor digitorum superficialis is innervated by the median nerve. The flexor carpi ulnaris is innervated by the ulnar nerve, which makes sense because the ulnar nerve is on the ulnar side. That's the ulnar nerve right there. So it makes sense. You can see this. It makes sense that this nerve, which is ulnar nerve, innervates the flexor carpi ulnaris. That's reasonable. So have a look at this image we'll get to a further, a deeper dissection of the anterior compartment of the forearm, where we'll begin to see other muscles like the pronator quadratus. We'll begin to see more details about the flexor digitorum profundus and even, the flexor pollicis longus. So let's go further. So let's look at this plane of dissection, which is a deeper plane of dissection, before we go down. So this is a deeper plane of dissection compared to the plane we've just talked about. And in this intermediate plane of dissection, we can see the flexor digitorum superficialis muscle. It has a broad, an extensive origin. So the flexor digitorum superficialis, it has a radial head. So part of it comes from the radius, and it has a humeral ulnar head. Part of it comes from the humerus and the ulnar, the humeral ulnar head, coming from the common flexor origin. Okay. Flexor digitorum superficialis, the humeral ulnar head comes from the flexor, and so there's also part of it from the humeral ulnar head. Of course, it makes sense. Humeral and ulnar, from the coronoid process of the ulnar and the common flexor origin or common flexor tendon from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. So looking at this image, it has a broad, quite an extensive origin. Okay. Flexor digitorum superficialis, and it runs beneath the flexor retinaculum, also called the transverse carpal ligament, and then the tendons get inserted. The tendons split into four strands that get inserted into the medial phalanges of the second, third, fourth, and fifth digits. So that's the muscle. That's our pronator teres muscle. So just to mention something, just before I forget, this pronator teres muscle, the pronator teres muscle, let me see where I can find that image. So the pronator teres muscle has a deep head and it has a superficial head. Now, in between the superficial and the deep head, the median nerve passes between those two heads. Let's see if this image demonstrates that. So that's the pronator teres. That's the deep head of the pronator teres. That's the superficial head of the pronator teres. That's our median nerve. So the median nerve, you can see the median nerve passes between this deep head and an overlying superficial head. So the median nerve crosses between that. Now there's something called pronator teres syndrome. If this median nerve gets trapped between the superficial head and the deep head of the pronator teres, it gives you a compressive neuropathy of the medial nerve, and that's called pronator teres syndrome. I just needed to mention that, just so I don't forget that. That's our pronator teres going to insert into the lateral border of the radius, the lateral surface of the radius, the middle 1/3 of the lateral surface of the radius. Okay, pronator teres. Flexor pollicis longus, as the name suggests, it's a flexor muscle. Pollicis means thumb and is a long muscle. Okay, if we have flexor pollicis longus, it tells us that we're going to have a flexor pollicis brevis, which we'll get to see when we look at the intrinsic muscles of the hand. Okay, when we get to look at the thenar and hypothenar muscles, we'll get to see the flexor pollicis brevis. Well, let's leave that out for now. So we have the flexor pollicis longus. So the flexor pollicis longus also has a broad origin. It comes from the middle third. You can say the middle third of the anterior surface of the radius and the adjacent part of the interosseous membrane. Okay, the middle third and even part of the upper third on the medial side, on the ulnar side, and the adjacent interosseous membrane give origin to the flexor pollicis longus. Now, because it's a long muscle, it's going to go to the distal phalanx. So it inserts into the base of the distal phalanx of the first digit of the thumb, flexor pollicis longus. And what it's going to do is going to flex this distal. It's going to flex because it's going to flex the interphalangeal joints of the thumb, because the thumb has only one interphalangeal joint. unlike other digits that have proximal and distal interphalangeal joints. So you're going to flex the interphalangeal joint of the thumb primarily, and secondarily, while doing that, it's going to also contribute in flexing the metacarpophalangeal joints and even the carpometacarpal joints of the thumb. Okay, so that's our flexor pollicis longus, coming from the middle half or middle third of the anterior surface of the radius and the adjacent interosseous membrane, and it's going to go down. So that's the flexor pollicis longus tendon. So that's the tendon. You can see it's running down along the thumb. You can see it there. That's it. Okay. Then this is flexor digitorum profundus. Analyzing the name, flexor means it's a flexor muscle. Digitorum means the digits, goes to the digits, the fingers, and profundus means deep. Superficialis means superficial. Profundus means deep. Okay, so the flexor digitorum profundus, extensive origin from the upper half of the anterior surface of the ulna and the adjacent part of the interosseous membrane. And someone may have called it flexor digitorum longus, but it's not called a longus, it's called profundus because it's deep, and it goes to insert into the base of the distal phalanges of the ulnar 4 digits. You can call it that way, the ulnar 4 digits, or you can just say the second, third, fourth, and fifth digits to keep it simple. Okay, and what it's going to do, looking at it, when you pull that muscle, it's going to flex the DIPJ, the distal interphalangeal joints of these 4 digits primarily, and secondarily to contribute to flexing the PIPJ, the primary interphalangeal joints, the metacarpophalangeal joints, and even the carpometacarpal joints, and even secondarily contribute to flexing the radiocarpal joint, which is the wrist joint. Okay, so the radiocarpal joint is the wrist joint. So it has the primary action here. And then because it traverses these other joints, it's going to secondarily contribute to the flexion of these other joints. So the flex, let's read the theory. This is an extract from Atlas of Human Anatomy by Frank Netters. So the flexor digitorum profundus comes from the medial and anterior surface of the proximal 3/4. Someone can say proximal half, someone might say proximal 3/4, depends on how you divide, of the ulna and the adjacent interosseous membrane. It inserts into the anterior base. Very important to add anterior, because I've been saying to the base, but the anterior base, because we'll get to see that something else inserts into the posterior base, the extensor digitorum muscles. So the anterior base of the distal phalanges, or the medial 4, or you can say the ulnar 4 or medial 4 digits, which are second, third, fourth, and fifth digits, or which are your index finger, your middle finger, your ring finger, and the little finger. Innervation of the flexor digitorum profundus, it has a dual innervation. So you can see I put there dual innervation. It's got a dual innervation. The medial part, which is the ulnar part, is innervated by the ulnar nerve, whereas the lateral part is innervated by the median nerve. And the flexor digitorum, the action is to flex these 2 phalanges of the medial 4. It also assists secondarily in flexing the hand and the wrist. Let's look at the theory of the flexor pollicis longus, and it comes from the anterior surface of the radius and the adjacent interosseous membrane. It inserts into the palmar base, or the anterior base, palmar base of the distal phalanx of the thumb. It's innervated by the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve. So someone can say, well, innervated by the median nerve, but innervated by the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve, and it flexes the phalanges of the thumb. Let's look at this last muscle, the pronator quadratus. Pronator quadratus originates from the lower third, the distal third or the lower third of the anterior surface of the ulna, and moves this way horizontally to have a broad insertion into the lower third. Some might say into the lower 1/4, because this looks more like 1/4 than 1/3. It looks a bit small, into the lower third or lower 1/4, of the anterior surface of the radius. So it's a quadrangular muscle. That's why it's called quadratus. It's quadrangular in shape. Okay, so it's pronator quadratus. So pronator means it contributes in pronation. Quadratus means it's quadrangular in shape. So that's the pronator quadratus muscle coming from the anterior 1/4, the distal 1/4 of the anterior surface of the ulna, moving horizontally, having a quadrangular shape to insert into the anterior surface of the distal 1/4 of the radius. Okay, and what it does is contributes to pronation. So the pronator teres pronates. Pronation is an action that happens at the radio-ulnar joint. So we have the proximal or superior radio-ulnar joints. We've got the distal or inferior radio-ulnar joints. So the pronator teres pronates at the proximal radio-ulnar joints. The pronator quadratus pronates at the distal radio-ulnar joint. So, but both of them work in tandem. They work hand in hand, hand in glove, in pronating the forearm at both the proximal and distal radio-ulnar joints. Okay. So let's just use this image to do a very quick round off. We've got our brachialis muscle. We've got our brachioradialis muscle coming from the distal third of the lateral surface, or the lateral border of the humerus, inserting into the base of the radiostylar process, brachioradialis. We've got pronator teres muscle having a superficial head and a deep head. Superficial head coming from the medial epicondyle, just above the origin of the common flexor tendon. The deep head coming from the coronary process of the ulna, and they move diagonally to insert into the middle third of the lateral border or the lateral surface. It's more of a surface on the lateral side, lateral surface of the radius. So pronator teres, we've got the common flexor tendon that gives origin to so many muscles. Still part of the pronator teres, the flexor carpi radialis, the palmaris longus, the flexor carpi ulnaris, and the humeral part of the humeral ulnar head of the flexor digitorum superficialis. So you see how I said that? The humeral parts of the humeral ulnar head, because the ulnar parts of the humeral ulnar head comes from the coronary process of the ulna. Okay, and that's flexor digitorum superficialis inserts into there, as we've seen. The palmaris longus inserts into the flexor retinaculum and blends with the palmar aponeurosis. So just in terms of clinical relevance, that palmar aponeurosis, when it becomes over-thickened and shortened, it gives you what is called the Dupuytren's contracture. So the palm looks contracted. It looks like there's a contracture of the palm and the fingers are bent. Sometimes it's painful, and it's usually common in people that do lots of mechanical handwork, like mechanics, carpenters, people that do lots of handwork, carrying heavy irons and all those things. So just to mention that, okay? Yeah. So I think we can leave it there. I think we've done justice by way of a very succinct revision of the muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm. If you think this video has been useful, if you think it's helped you to revise, to learn one thing or a few, as I said earlier at the beginning of the video, kindly like, subscribe, and share to friends that you think will find this useful. Thank you very much.